Good evening, everyone. Um, Welcome to the online learning series. We are just going to jump right in. So I just wanted to start off just by introducing myself. Hello, my name is Loren Graham, and I'll be hosting our webinar today. So my heritage, I have mixed European ancestry on both sides of my family, as well as I'm Liquidelk from Cape Mudge on my father's side, which is just located up near Campbell River. Um, my role with First Peoples Cultural Council is language program navigator and with the Pathways to Language Vitality team. And I'm very grateful today to introduce our presenter today. Her name is Sanat, or Jessica Starlund, and her presentation today is called um, Gigi'ihl Algyax Ehl Angooga'm. I hope I did okay with that. Um, and yeah, just before we jump into the webinar, if for some people, if you're not familiar with First Peoples Cultural Council, we support revitalization work for Indigenous communities all across what is known as British Columbia. First Peoples Cultural Council is grateful to have our home in the territory of unceded territory of the Saanich people in the village of Joplin. We have additional satellite office in Kamloops within the territory of the Secwepemc people. And we also provide support throughout all of what is now called BC and beyond. And if you'd like, I'm curious to know where you're all joining us from. So please feel free to include that in the chat. Um, And just a quick overview for today. Once we're done with some formalities and sharing important information, we will pass it along to Sanat for approximately an hour. Once they've wrapped up their presentation, we will transition to a question and answer period. If for some reason you need to leave or lose connection, know that this is being recorded and will be posted for you to watch at a later time. Our moderator today is Anna Socha, who is a language associate with the Mentor Apprenticeship team program, and it will be behind the scenes supporting the Q&A if you are having any trouble joining and moderating the chat. Without further ado, I'd love to give space for Sanat to share her presentation.
So, Gigi'ihl Algyax my presentation that I will be speaking about tonight is titled Gigi'ihl Algyax Ehl Angooga'm, which translates to Seeking Spoken Language from Our Ancestors, implementing total physical response in a classroom as one main tool to teach Gitxsanimx. So Simgi'gyet, Sigidim Hanak, gan Smolganith Gobawilsix, I Senent Chluet, Gitxsan gan Nuchanuth Ni, Lach Ganeta Pedetri, Wilp's Halus when Suwitri, and Hatlailsti at Indigenous Language Revitalization for the past 13 years. And I am currently in the Masters of Indigenous Language Revitalization at the University of Victoria. So I'm just stating I come from two nations. One is Gitxsan and the other is Nuchanuth on Vancouver Island. Geographically, this is where my community resides in northern British Columbia. I'm indicated a little circle here that shows Hazelton. My community is about 40 minutes away on the highway to Alaska, along the Skeena River, which is right here. I just want to make a note, Anna, I can't see my my presenter notes on here. I'm not too sure how to.
Yeah, if you press take control of the top of your screen.
Okay, there we go. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, apologies for that. And yeah, so the language that belongs to the Gitxsan people are that we share along with Nishka and the Tsimshian Nation is Sim Algyax, and more in depth to who I am, we refer to it as Gitxsanimx. The setting of the study is in the community of Gitwangach, which in English means many place or the place of many rabbits. And so this larger picture right here is a nice view of my village that I have grown up in. These are some of the totem poles that belong to this specific community and the clans of this community. And each totem pole holds history, language, and a landmark of specific clan territories of this community. And I just really love and admire the mountains in the winter time, so I wanted to include winter photos as well. And so speaking about where I work, I currently work in the school called Wilp, and Simgi'gyet, which translates to the Chief's House of Learning. The photo on the bottom right here is the actual building. And the building was literally fundraised and built by all of those within the photos. And each of them had a dream and vision to provide Gitxsan education through language, culture, and land. And that was in the late 1980s was when they started planning and really physically building this program. And so I just really love a lot of the photos that I'll be sharing tonight are photos that I found in my workplace when I came back to work. And so there's some of our chiefs, as well as here, the ribbon cut for the opening ceremony. Right here is some of the students a long time ago who were in a parade, and it says, "Our tradition, our education." And I just want to make a note that many within these photos are now my ancestors. So next, I just would like to take a little bit of time to situate myself, just sharing who I am, my journey, and the opportunities that I have had. And so this is a poster that I had created in Dr. Onao McIver's epistemology class at UVic. And it's titled Ayop Komagwalthiaens, which is to pass on all that we know to the next generation. And so on the bottom left here is myself as a little girl. I was really fortunate to be raised by parents and families who strived to promote our traditional lifestyle and our Gitxsan education. In 1993, I gained a language nest certificate. So right here is my certificate. And eventually, once I graduated, I went and started a program for the ECE, Early Childhood Education. I didn't complete that full program. However, that did give me an opportunity to become an ECE assistant, a certified one, to work back into my community. And it was there when I really started seeing and having a spark for my language, working with the grandmother and a fluent speaker in the language nest. Eventually, I became the lead Gitxsan teacher in my school right now. And so this is some of the students in our bus. And in 2019, I inherited the name Sinensk. And so Sinensk is a matriarch name. It is, with the matriarch name, you carry a lot more responsibilities by participating in cultural events and showing your support and just being present within our Gitxsan lifestyle and communities. And that was a collective decision by the chiefs of that time. And so I had to have a formal process of taking on that name and hosting a feast. And right here is where I had taken on the opportunity to support Indigenous communities. Right here is in Mexico. So I traveled there with First Peoples Cultural Council because I was in the Mentor, our Master Apprentice program. And I was really fortunate to be able to travel to the same destination as Dr. Leanne Hinton. Right here, I wanted to include who I am, like a traditional Gitxsan woman. I've been learning how to traditionally preserve salmon since I've been a young girl. So right here is our smokehouse, my nephew right there. And then eventually I get elevated into the University of Victoria. And how I became into the Masters of Indigenous Language Revitalization was through what is called the exceptional entry. And so the exceptional entry pretty much was a way that I needed to demonstrate that all of the years and all of the work that I had done in the amount of 10 years, I needed to compile it, put it on a YouTube channel, make a really huge document of all the posters and songs that we translated and the events that I had done. And that gave me, that allowed me to be in the Masters of Indigenous Language Revitalization. And that really is through the advocacy of Dr. Lorna Williams. And right here is the world, because as mentioned, I'm Gitxsan. I've been raised here in my communities, and then now I am experiencing how to walk in academia. And so it's like balancing both of those different types of lifestyles and really blending them together to get to where I want to be, which is eventually completing my master's program. And just how we're all connected. And I feel like a lot of the knowledge that I have is really giving thanks to my ancestors who are on the top row here. This is my Neutronu's grandmother, my grandfather, my husband's grandfather, my great-grandfather, and my dad's mom. And so I made them all connected because my auntie and my mom, and then my mentor right here, they all really groomed me and taught me the language and traditional preservation. And I'll quickly touch on this because it's as a button blanket. Button blankets within the Gitxsan people are only worn by matriarchs, our chiefs. And in the back, I wanted to incorporate the stars because I really believe in our spirituality and that the universe and our ancestors within our universe, like they really provide us with opportunities. And I have practiced the law, the ayok, of not saying no when something is offered to you. And so I really feel like with me applying that has led me to where I am today. And I just always really like to shed light on a language nest as a methodology and immersion, that exposure at an early childhood age. And so this is me. Both my parents were a part of the working group of the workplace where I am today. And so that was having a language nest in 1993 and then this school. And so right here are some of our ancestors who were right in the living room, just singing and talking in the language. And right here, I'm in a box in the smokehouse because I was brought to work. And then right here, I'm learning Gitxsan. You can see on the poster. And then right here, I'm being out on the land, which is still through a lot of hard work and effort with our staff today. This is what we're still really striving for and doing. And I really believe this is where the seed was planted. And just a little quote from chapter 1 of my master's project that I'm currently writing. So I feel that as a Gitxsan language teacher, it is valuable to share resources, tools, and experiences that will help with Indigenous language revitalization efforts. This project will provide an opportunity to identify language acquisition, and share how this curriculum can be implemented within a school. The community where I come from continues to have big dreams and visions to provide a Gitxsan education. I feel my research will contribute to their effort of practicing Guelphians, the passing on of knowledge to the next generation, and this will support learners and community with reclaiming their ancestral language in an educational setting. And now I would like to share all that I have learned. And so just a little bit of, I guess, like literature review. So these are the three main methods that I will be talking about within this presentation. The first one is autoethnography, and that's what I'm using. Excuse me. That's what I'm using within my research project. And autoethnography is a qualitative research method that involves a combination of autobiography, so study about self, and ethnography, which is a study about culture. And I just feel like this really was able to provide me, it just felt fitting for me to use this as a research method. Total physical response. Total physical response was founded by Dr. James Asher. He shares the idea of introducing a second language to learners by acting out commands is derived from the natural path by which we all learn our first language. In the early stages of acquisition of a natural language, the child first listens and responds by acting out or doing things in response to requests, directions, or commands that other members of the family can direct. Last is the curriculum that involves TPR, and that is called First Nations Language Essentials. And so I'll refer to it as FNLE as well. The FNLE was written by Dr. Catherine Michelle with the support of the First Nations Education Steering Committee as well as FNSA. It is I'm just a little bit hesitant to say exactly like who really wrote it. I was trying to look about that, but I know they collaboratively took on this initiative. And yeah, it uses TPR and TPRS, which is for story. The curriculum teaches, I feel the curriculum teaches like building blocks of words and phrases to begin to have a conversational outcome with learners. And so methods that I use within the classroom. So right here is the curriculum, the FNLE. This is just how it looks. Right here is just a little bit of ASL. So I do have other Gitxsan language champions who have been translating different curriculums and have provided me with a copy. And one is this that involved ASL. And so this is my assistant right here. She's very eager to learn and get in front of the camera and just enrich and excite the language program that I have. And so right here, she's saying, Amahilo, good morning. And then I also take a little bit of tools and strategies from the Mentor Apprentice handbook, such as playing Uno with the kids or the 20 by 20 rule of teaching language and new vocabulary. And so I'll just quickly play her little video here.
Amahilo. Amahilo.
So we made a couple different videos like that, and I feel like it just feels nice to kind of really own and have resources that our own people make as well. And just sharing a little screenshot of where I went to go and get training to be taught the TPR method. And so this is the Chief of Tom's School. They're a well-known school in the province of BC for their immersion programs. This is also where Dr. Catherine Michelle works as well. They have language nest and immersion programming within their school. And so they offer a 2-week program every July, I believe. 1 week is where you learn just about the TPR method. And then the second week is when you start learning it more about the blend of TPR and then the story. And now I'm going to go into just a little bit of like screenshots that I took from the FNLE digital document that I have. And so right here is to guide the progression of each unit. So the FNLE has a total of 5 or 6 units. I can't remember at this moment. And they base it on the acronym of Ask Me, is used to identify each part of the instructional components. So A is for action. This section develops listening comprehension skills using comprehensible input and the TPR approach. S is for story. The second part of each unit will focus on developing speaking skills using the following TPR storytelling strategies. K is for keep talking. The third part of each unit will focus on practicing using the new vocabulary in a communicative way using games and communicative activities. M is for make a story. In the fourth part of each unit, students will show the understanding of their unit's targeted language skills through making and sharing their own stories. Last, E is for evaluate. Each unit ends with the evaluation section where students use of the target language, skills, and vocabulary and will be assessed. And so right here is just a little photo of how Unit 1 evaluation would be. And so within the curriculum, it's all scripted, you would translate it. And for example, if I were to provide my students with a test, I would teach them Demistin, which is right. And I would say Demistin am Gitxsanimx Gitxsan, which translates to write the number 1 beside stand up. And then like write number 2 beside walk. And so I would usually have a little whiteboard where I'd be visibly showing them how to write the numbers using my language to try to promote it being immersion. A little bit of strategies. And so this is also within the document. So circling often called the heart of TPRS. Circling consists of asking as many questions as possible about a statement. An example of circling based on a new vocabulary, apple, could look something like this. So the teacher shows an apple to a student, and then they say, this is a red apple. I like to eat apples. Do you like to eat apples? And I would also maybe use my EA, like my learner beside me, and role model with her. And she would respond, and here, I give you the apple. What color is the apple? And they would respond, and the teacher can then ask the class, who did I give the apple to? Did I give the apple to Sarah? Did I give her a red dog or a red apple? Who has the apple? So those are some examples of circling questions to kind of prompt them and get them thinking and answering. Next is the modeling of commands with a volunteer, student, or teacher's helper, which is kind of what I just mentioned. So as a teacher, I would call on any of my assistants or any students that I know have a little bit more of an advanced level to ask them and have them model back to me the response that I am looking for. And also another tip is the use of voice. So how you use your voice helps students comprehend faster and keeps them interested. Stress and annotation are key factors in our communication. Help the students learn this by using your normal speaking speed and tone of voice, and by varying at times to keep them on their toes. So one example could be like where I'm teaching them cry, it. And so I'm going to really emphasize like, oh, it, Sarah, it, and maybe even have a little whimpering cry. So really kind of using your body and your emotions and how you would communicate what you are teaching them. And now right here is the beginning of Unit 1. And so within this FNLE curriculum, I really like how it has different layouts of how you would want your students to sit before you deliver your lesson. And so up here, the best U-shaped with demo row is best for average to large size classrooms. Teacher rotates students in demo row at front of class. Students have a good view of the teacher in this layout. Second, rows with demo row, so best for smaller to average size classrooms. Teacher rotate 1 to 2 students on each side for active demonstration. Students have a good view of teacher. Square shaped, I really like this one because I find it's good for like beginner levels. So best for large size classrooms. Teacher moves from the middle of each row, modeling new vocabulary. Students have excellent view of teacher. And so I know my photos are very small here, but within the middle of each row is a little T. And so those are where I would leave it open. So if I'm seeing one row is not understanding, like turn around, then I would move and I would go and sit with them, and then we would do it all together and teach them turn around. Circle, personally, I have not used circle, but it's best for small to average size classrooms. Students' view of teacher is often obstructed, not recommended for the first few units. And now, Unit 1, so the beginning of each unit, there are target vocabulary, and they're all based under the categories of action, object, and other. So in Unit 1, we're going to cover stand up, sit down, walk, stop, turn around, run, and we're going to focus on table, chair, saying yes or no, and who and this is. And then towards either goth or gandith. So those are target vocabulary there. And I just wanted to show an example of how a lesson looks once it's translated. And so on the top, this is all red here, and it states lesson 1 out of 15 lessons within Unit 1. And right here is lesson 1. And so it will show the vocabulary that we will work on, the preparation, how will I choose to set up the chairs, the introduction, so just explaining a couple housekeeping rules to the students, and this is what I expect of you all while we start our lesson. The guided practice of where we all do it together. And then on the second page of that, on the right column here, the L, so based on your layout, the L would be for the left side of the class, W is for the whole group, R is for right, B is for the back row, and then the whole. And teaching new gestures for vocabulary, checking for comprehension. So the closed eye check. So within this document, it's encouraging teachers to check in at the end of the lesson to see how the learners are doing. So for example, I would have my hand out and I would teach them walk, stand, sit, turn around. And so after when I teach them these gestures, I would get them to close their eyes or they would look down and I would say that. And so that would visibly show me if, say, a new learner is not understanding sit when I'm saying done, done, and I notice one student's not. So then that's going to cue to me that, okay, we need to all relearn done, or like just practice that a little bit more. Now we go into a little bit of the stories near the end of the unit. And so this is Unit 1, and it's just beginning to teach them the visuals for each word, and also like sentences. And so like right here, this is Hess, or Hess is says or said, Craig done. So it's saying Craig says sit down. Patrick says sit down. Janice says sit down. And so when I would teach the kids this, after we get the hang of it, has Craig done? Has Patrick done? Has Janice done? And once we all get the hang of it, I could be like, oh, Neth hes Anna Dana. And I'd be like, nay, Neth hes Liz Dana. And nay. I'm like, okay. Hes Craig Dana. And if they say like yes, then I would remodel like, okay, Gup Hesum, Geet Gilgolet, Hess, Craig, done, to try to cue for all of them to begin practicing together how to say a full response back over a one-word answer. And so on the left here is just showcasing how it's scripted once you translate it. And as we begin processing throughout the document, the stories begin to get a little bit more complex based on the target language of each unit. And so right here, again, it's just saying, Has Patrick done? Has Patrick hitwina? Nay, has Patrick done? Like Patrick said, sit. And then right here, just including a little bit more language. So right here, it's saying, Gigi'ihl Anna get nathwen. Has get Charlie thwet. Bowser tun. Or Genny tun. Has Anna genamt lot. I het Charlie. Nay, Genny tun. Iwi it Anna. So just practicing that and then saying, oh, nath has Liz nath get tunna. And they're saying no. So it's, again, those circling questions within each story. And so M is for making a story. So my presentation is also showing how I use the FNLE curriculum for teaching a language, but how I'm also using it to give me a nice little foundation to create more language learning opportunities that kind of suit what we also teach in the school, which is like going out on the land. But this is an example. It says, in the fourth part of each unit, students will show their understanding of the unit's targeted language skills through making and sharing their own stories. For the first couple of units, have them retell a story. As students become more comfortable and familiar with the language, they may be given other choices for retelling, presenting their stories, including drawing their story, write and retell their story with picture sentences, using flashcards, do a puppet show, create and narrate a film or slideshow, write a script for other students to act out your story while the student narrates. And so right here, I work with grades, grade 1 to grade 7, and some of them are very little. And so I just kind of created a very short story using a picture of my son, who is well known to the kids, and then other relatable characters that I know they'll have no problem saying are locations. So I'll just mute and I'll play this. Yeah. Net has Kaylin Bachen record Ralph got Disneyland? Nee. Has Kaylin go? Goodie at Kaylin.
Has Kaylin record go Disney.
All right, and now I have another little clip right here. And so this is actually of my niece. And she's a learner that incorporated her personal life, such as her dog, and she added more custom cards. So there's a few visuals on here that were not a part of the FNLE visuals. She actually drew or she wrote her own story. And yeah, it's just really great to see. So I'll mute myself and I'll play it as well.
Here you go, Liz. Has Anna Tucker got a Henigi. Tess Tucker ne Nediwa. Tess Anna Wiet Tucker Yet Tucker got a Henigi. He walked Tucker.
Hugya. Hess Anna Ne.
This is a
Nee, Hess Anna Hugya. Nesbacht Tucker got Henigi, huh?
Yet Tucker.
Hugya, Jeb and Anna. Nath, what's up?
Tucker was
Jeb and Anna. So that also to me is like another, a message, like the unexpected things that happen through the learners is such a reassurance of my effort being effective. So now, as mentioned, how I'm using this FNLE curriculum to begin blending it with what we are doing at a relevant teaching level, such as going out on the land. And so right here are some of the visuals. Right here is Gitxsan, which is to ask. La'asim is plural for you all walk. And Ga'ath is like going to somewhere. And right here is Dilch. And so right here is ask, you all walk to, and then kids. And so when I'm beginning to teach a new story, I'll have these visuals pop up on the board and just get them familiar with how they look. And so right here is a little customized story that I wanted to test out with the older group, which is about grade 4 to grade 7. And so right here it says, Yuk Gigi'ihl Anna Samag'gyet Simgi'gyet Dim Dipap Dimilich Gatla Hipina as Simgi'gyet Samag'gyet Simgi'gyet La'asim Gatla Hip Simgi'gyet Hadi Dil Doir Samnin Samag'gyet La'adi Dil Gatla Hip Simgi'gyet Hap Dimilich Dil Da'al Dimilich Sydney. And so right here is saying Anna had asked a chief to go and trap a beaver on his territory. And the chief had said, yes, you all walk to my territory. And the children all said, thank you, Samag'gyet Simgi'gyet, thank you, chief. And they all walked to his territory and they trapped a beaver. And one of our on the land teachers at that time, he skinned the beaver. And so I found this to be something that they were able to understand, but it was something that we taught before we went out. And then we went and had the experience, and then we revisited this story. And also, we're always really encouraged to invite chiefs into the classroom so then students can practice that protocol of asking to go onto the territory. And right here is just something that I've created on Canva as a worksheet for my younger students, where we're getting them to practice their writing and also beginning to teach them at their level of retelling this visual story. And so I did this by filling in the blanks. And so it also teaches a little bit of proper grammar as well. So we wouldn't just say Yen Luca got off Walmart unless it was a command. But right here we're saying Luca is walking to Walmart. Yes, Luca got off Walmart. And then I'll add on, the Grinch, or maybe a Halloween character or something that will suit the theme that we are in. And also, this student used like her little brother and sister's names. So it's something that's exciting for them to do and to retell it. And then again, just circling those questions back before they move on to say like centers or something, then I'll get them to read it to me. And then I'll say, oh, Nefhet, Rekit Ralph, Haldem Guth, Sachganam at Luca. Nee. Okay. Hess Grinch. Haldum Guth Sachganamat Luca. And so that's just another little activity that I had done with them. And now going into things that I feel is important, which is to create games that complement the curriculum lessons. And so right here is what we call fiddlesticks. I learned this game from a teacher that used to work here, and she was so great with the literacy programs. And I always loved how engaging and fun her kids would have in that type of setting. And so I adapted the game of fiddlesticks into the TPR visuals. And so on each stick, I made the visuals very small, and it's a large group game, and everybody sits in a circle, and we all take turns, and we pull one stick, and we have to say the picture that's on that stick. And we go around, and as you say it, you collect the stick as a point. But it could get competitive because there are two sticks within this little bucket that one has a happy face, which means you could steal another player's sticks. The more sticks you have, the closer you are to winning. But now if you get a sad face, you have to put all of your sticks back into the bucket. And right here is a little cheat sheet that I have for staff who are beginning to become comfortable with taking on small groups for our school-wide Gitxsan Fridays that we have every other Friday. And so I just find that these are really great and effective for the young learners as well as the staff that do want to help with our language lessons. And there's also Hess Simon, which is Simon Says, and that's also an activity that is stated within the FNLE document. We do memory, so you could also use these visuals as memory and learn the little basic language around like Haldum Guth card, Niskieth card, Psyche, Nedi Psyche. So teaching those little things to still keep trying to make it as immersive as we can with the time that we have. The Fly Swatter game, that's another literacy game. Other games that we use as centers are like Uno, so from the Mentor Apprentice book. Guess Who or charades is what I've been practicing as well. And you could also use fiddlesticks as teaching other vocabulary, such as like Halloween right here. This is Halloween vocabulary. Now next, because this research is on using this method within the school that I work in. And so the situation of our school is we are a very small First Nations school. We have two blended classrooms. So classroom 1 is of learners from grade 1 to grade 3. And then classroom 2 is grade 4 to grade 7. And in previous years, our max capacity was at 15 students. And over time, we actually have so many more students than our max capacity limit was. So I think right now we're at 16 or 17 in primary class, grade 1 to grade 3, and then 19 from grade 4 to grade 7. And so with that being stated, the older group I have for 1 hour a day, so 5 hours a week. The second group I have for 8 hours a week. So I have them for 4 days a week from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And so with that schedule and that amount of learners, this is our former past schedule that we had, where it was just like very routine. Start off with the prayer, do a whole class TPR, have a complementing worksheet or activity, and then a language game. But now, with the support of our language coach, she also gave us she supported us with dividing up all of the students into smaller groups and doing a rotating type of schedule. So then, for example, I would have a beginner level group for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we would switch and they would go to a memory game, and then we would switch again. And so then I would have them divided up into 3 groups, and then that would allow me to have time to do a structured TPR lesson with each group that we have. And so we just started doing this past year. And so I just thought I would share a little schedule and a little bit of the situation that we have specifically in our school. So we've gone into smaller groups. So TPR in one group, a language game in one group, and then like a fiddlesticks or something that will support with the TPR learning. And so next, this video is also on YouTube. I made it quite a few years ago, but I just shortened it down so then I could focus in on how I use the FNLE prompting questions outside of the language lessons. So in here, once I play the clip, I'll be saying Nath Genet Lahiep. And Gent is a word that I learned in the FNLE. It's like, who does this belong to? The possession word. And so this is a short little clip on us going to a chief's territory and harvesting salmon.
Wilp when genaamd gaan Wilp swalaksa. Hi, we madam. Het ni sedam op dit Wilp school. Goed gaan, me in dit gaan, sama on dit gaan, ja dit gaan, in it hi, we madam. Where did we get our fish? On whose territory?
Melly.
Gaslach and Jack. Naskin it lachipt. Mally ligi we lit. We lit. Hogya. Galiax some skina ligi galiax some nas. Hogya. Nas got it. Who remembers where all the len go and get spawned?
This here.
Yeah.
The Hannah and the Tatina.
Good, yeah. And then there's one more creek as well.
The river.
Stone Creek.
So this was quite a few years ago, so I wasn't at the level of like language, the language level that I'm at right now with my fluency. But now we'll go into a more recent program. So as mentioned, with the blended classrooms, we're going into smaller groups. And so we have a set of students who have been in our program since Language Nest. And these 2 students are in grade 6 and grade 7. And it was a 4-minute video clip, but I shortened it down to where it was like our first time that we were doing groups. And I had Unit 3 out on the table and I was kind of reading it. And then I was like, oh my God, they know what I'm saying. And so I needed to kind of improvise on that, on my observation of them. And yeah, I'll just play it and mute myself again.
Sigidim and Unin. I'm really good at hands. The book Sigidim and Unin. Okay. So he's gonna draw little pebbles. Touching hands. Alright, Gitxsanimx Ellis Primo. Primo, lip gook skull demquin. Deuce. Lip gook skull demquin deuce. No. Skull demquin deuce. Okay. Happy to miss Lady Severance. Yeah. Kate, lip go skill dem points up. Kate, lip go skill dem points up. Stride. What's up? floppy ears. Okay, I'm Jevin Primo. Okay, genaamd kan de Miss Alice Autumn. Noi Sydney, I'm Jevin. Autumn, the Gooks go down from Henny Talk. So. Okay. En de Gooks go down from Henny daar, left deuce. Again. All right, so in death, deuce primo. Need ath, deuce, lach henny talk. Liggy need ath, deuce, lach henny da. In death, deuce.
It kind of cut out a little bit there. But it's just, again, like finding ways to improvise to challenge them a little bit of the language that they're learning is almost like juggling sometimes to me. It's like, okay, I need to figure out what I can do right now to enrich their learning kind of thing. And I just want to make a note that we're really lucky to have a videographer this year. And so she has a role of scheduling time to come into our classrooms and into our programs and out on the land to really capture things like this, which I feel is so nice to have. And so with parent consent, I'm really thankful that they're also supportive and on board with having this position and having these types of recordings to be shared for our programs. And now I go into kind of circling back to the Gigi'ihl Algyax Ehl Angooga'm, so seeking the spoken language. So since starting my master's program, I have learned about methods. I have become more aware of the language work, which led me to visibly see, hear, or speak the language of our ancestors. And so, as mentioned, I am a matriarch. I have different roles and responsibilities, such as, like one thing that I've learned with learning Gitxsan is trying my best to follow the Gitxsan law of speaking Sim Algyax within the Wilp, within the feast, and within any type of cultural or community events where I know there are going to be fluent speakers or elders. I want to try my best to speak to them using my language. And so right here is a photo of me leading a feast, giving a speech. And right here on the left is one of my first speeches that I created and typed out in my language and from the heart. And this opening speech was for our language conference that took place in my community last year. And I just felt it's a language conference. I feel like I need to only speak Sim Algyax to start off our event. And so this was where I translated or I wrote it. And it was focused on how the language helped with my healing. Right here is my adawach, which is called history. And this history is very sacred and it belongs to the frog clan of my community, which is the clan that I sit in, the clan that I'm a matriarch in. And I have learned with hosting feasts that you kind of like assert your Gigi'ihl, your strength, by sharing your territory and your history within the feast hall. That is the appropriate time. And a lot of the times our feast hall is kind of referred to as like kind of like the parliament where all of the chiefs come of the Gitxsan nations and we all witness the work that is about to take place. such as getting a name or passing on a name when it's Simgi'gyet dies, things like that. And so I translated this history, and with both of my speeches here, I brought it to my grandmother of our program here, and I read them out to her, and I had very minor corrections. And I was very surprised with that. And so I wanted to highlight all of the parts. All of the yellow are highlights of words, grammar, or sentence structure that I had learned from the FNLE TPR curriculum. And I wanted to see, like, where am I finding that spoken language? And throughout my research and processing it, I've also come to realize, like, I am also my own learner as well. And I'm applying my learned language into important parts within our Gitxsan culture and our lifestyle, such as ceremonial events and feasts. And that is, those are the messages that I really like to see, and the reassurance that I like to see. And so I have a couple little quotes here that I've kind of thought about. The one up here is this little girl. I was cooking breakfast in our program last year, and she comes in and she's sitting with me as I'm cooking, and she's like, I just keep having these Gitxsan words pop in my head. Yen and Ga'ath, they just keep popping in my head. And I just thought that was so cool. I'm like, thank you for sharing that. You're learning. And I'm also teaching one of my sister cousins the language. She's one of my apprentices, and in her evaluation, I was able to see the growth and the comfort that she had had with using some of these, some of the language, such as like pick up and put down, and how our panelist was able to see like that she is able to say and remember those command words such as Heldmguth and Niskik. And this quote right here is from my late brother. He worked with us for a little bit, and he was such a great person. And he sent me a little recording one night after he seen me teach TPR, and he sent me a voice clip, and he said, man, sister, I'm laying in bed and I just keep hearing yen, 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 Gigi'ihl, yen, 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 Gigi'ihl. And he just laughed, and I just thought that was so cool because those signs are like showing me that it's effective. And last is my recent little encounter with my brother's youngest son. And I hadn't seen him for a long time because he was in his home community and he was handing out stuff at his feast. And I said, Ethan, Gigi'ihl Algyax Ehl Angooga'm, Guns Jr. got out of school. I said, Huggiet holiday, yeah? And he says, got out Gitxsan. So I was saying, Ethan, I haven't seen you and your brother in a long time. Come and give me a hug. I haven't seen you at school, and were you guys like on a holiday? And he said, yes, in the community of Gitxsan. And so I just thought I would share kind of how I am seeking or searching for the spoken language of our ancestors, and that's popping up through me and through the learners and through my staff. There are challenges, I'm not going to lie. Learning the language is a challenge. I'm not fully 100% fluent yet. Learning any method could be challenging. Teaching the method, gaining the confidence, not giving up, translating the document, and I'm going to be 100% honest, this document is very long to translate. I've only gotten up to Unit 5, and you really need a fluent speaker beside you the whole time as you reach those advanced levels. And juggling your situations and learners. So life happens. How are you going to navigate your personal, your personal wellness? How are you going to juggle an increase of max capacity of students, scheduling, things like that? And I wanted to shed light on what I feel makes the language program in our school show growth. And I feel like it's the families. Throughout my whole 13 years of working here, like when I first started, we had about maybe 9 students per class or even less. And now we're up to, I think from ages 0 to grade 7, there's almost 70 students. Our staff, there's one staff who is in the NITEP program. There's one who is in the Certificate of Indigenous Language Revitalization program at UVic, myself in the Miller program, and there's a lot that are in the ECE program. And so I feel like getting that type of academia along with our workplace, it is really hard and challenging, but it's also like really elevating and enriching the programs that we have. And also some staff are beginning to take on learning. So learning a language could be very challenging. It could be intimidating. It could make you feel a little bit shy, but I feel like the past year, we've started what's called a school-wide Gitxsanimx Friday that happens every couple of weeks. And so we do the same format where everybody breaks up into groups and we're all learning Gitxsan through activities, traditional song, or lessons. And some of those staff are starting to take on like fiddlesticks and leading. And so that's contributing to the efforts. Our supportive administrator, support from FNSA, so our language coach, she came in and really got to visit and see our program and the work that we do and provided us with some support. Now, nearing my last slide, I just want to say Sam's Wilson, like keep going. I really feel that every effort counts and makes a difference, whether it's just learning the language or shifting an attitude of a language. Any type of effort makes such a big difference. And I really am spiritual because I've needed to do my own healing with different losses that I have faced. And so like being aware of signs and messages. Dr. Belinda Daniels, one of my professors, and she's also my supervisor, she had a guest, she was a guest speaker in one of the programs, and she talked about like dreams and deja vu, like be aware of those because those are like especially dreams can be Indigenous research methodologies, which I found so amazing. And yeah, for an example of a message like learners learning and speaking and using the language outside of the class, just a little quote, once you take the spiritual world seriously, you will start to see a sign in everything, everyone, and in every situation. And so, Gitxsanimx, just a little bit of the resources that I used. They're not all in alphabetical order, but I just wanted to make a note because I reached out to FNSA about a resource for the FNLE. She said that they do have a resource that is available for teachers in First Nation schools in BC to get a printed version sent to their school upon request. And anyone interested in receiving one can email languages@finesse.ca for more information. So I'll try to figure out how I can add that into the chat. But that concludes my presentation. Gitxsanimx Sabach.
Oh, Gila Kesla, Samantha, that was really beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing about all the different ways you teach your language. And I think something that kind of came to mind when you were sharing the last slide about spirituality is one of my best friends who's Nachalith, her late grandma Ina Seacher. She would always say that when you're experiencing deja vu, that's when you know you're in the right place and you're doing the right thing. So I think that really is quite special, and I just appreciate all the the real like tangible tools that you're sharing and your experience. So Yes, again, thank you.
Gula Wilp, take care.
Doink Sint Neen, Gans Neen. Yamp Neen, Emma Auch.